Okay, let's continue on with question B. Extract 2 mentions that there is a cut in Japan's credit rating. Explain why Japanese yen fell in value after the cut in credit rating. So let's identify the type of question this is. Explain why Japanese yen fell. So this is really a determination of exchange rates. And if you recall, how do you determine how exchange rates are set? Is through the demand-supply model. Take note, it's demand-supply, not aggregate demand, aggregate supply. Okay, so it's the DDSS that we learned in micro. It's the very same one. So this yen fell is the effect. But what was the cause? The cause is the cut in credit rating. Okay, so let's reframe this question in a demand-supply conceptual framework. In your demand-supply framework, the first thing you want to have is your factors of demand and or supply. Then you want to explain how there is the interaction in your demand-supply, your price adjustment process, and how will that lead you to your effects. And recall your standard demand-supply effects is P and Q. So when we talk about exchange rates, we are really saying P, the price of the Japanese yen in terms of foreign currency. So to make it simpler, I'll just say in terms of the USD. So that's really the price. The issue we are given is found in extract 2. And this issue is credit rating downgrading. Okay, so this is a real world intuitive issue that happens, and it will affect either the demand or supply of Japanese yen. When that happens, recall the price adjustment process. There will be a shortage or surplus of Japanese yen at the original exchange rate. Then it will cause a up or downward pressure on price. And then it will cause price to change and equilibrium quantity to change. Right? So this is how it will lead to your change in price. So this is just a very quick recap of your demand-supply framework. And even before we have read anything in the extract, just from the question, we can identify this framework already, right? So take note, this question is 2 marks, and they don't ask for a diagram. So do you need to give a demand-supply diagram? No, because they don't ask, you're not given any marks for it, and it takes quite a bit of time to draw the diagram. So in my opinion, I wouldn't go ahead and draw the diagram at all. But you need to know that the key focus of this question is identifying correctly whether is the demand changing or the supply changing, or is possible is even both changing. How does it change and why? Okay. Then after you have done that, you can talk about the interaction and how will that lead to the effect, which is Japanese yen falling. Okay. So I just want to go through how this might look in the demand-supply diagram. I said you don't need to draw it, but I want to show you the diagram for some who might find it difficult to follow, just so that it's extremely clear. Okay, so this is the market for Japanese yen. This is the quantity of yen. This is the price of yen in terms of the USD. It's not just the USD, it's all other currency, but for the sake of illustration, to make it easier, we just say in terms of USD. So we have demand and supply diagram. So this is the original P, which is the original exchange rate. The question says Japanese yen fell in value. Fell in value, what does it mean? It means P falls. Okay, that's what it means. P falls, fall in value. So you know that your new equilibrium P is P1, is anything that is lower than your P0. So you can imagine this one is, maybe you take $1 to buy 100 yen. Then here, you only take 90 cents USD to buy 100 yen. Okay, so this is the price. That's why it's fall in value, because you only need less US dollar to buy the same amount of yen. So yen is the good. Okay, yen is the good, or the service in this market. So when you expect to see your price falling, what are the possible reasons for this? You already know, just from the theory, we haven't even talked about the extract, that there are two possible ways. One is your demand falls, another is your supply increase. So it's either your supply shift right or your demand shift left, and or. Okay, these are your factors. So when you are given the issue, credit rating downgrade, will it affect supply or will it affect demand? That is the main issue that you're going to solve. Once you can answer, is it supply or is it demand, and how and why, then the explanation comes very naturally. The interaction is just theory, there's a shortage, there's a surplus, all that you can understand from your own, just from the theory. So now let's go on to understand this issue. Okay? And we will do so by studying the extract. So the question directs us to extract 2. So always make sure you're on the correct extract, right? Let's read extract 2 and fish out the main arguments. I won't go through the entire extract. Standard & Poor downgraded Japanese credit rating by 1 notch. So A plus is the highest, and then A minus is the second highest. So basically they got bumped down, right? So this is what happened. Okay, downgrade in the credit rating. But why? So if you don't understand what a credit rating is, never mind, you can infer just by some of the descriptions on why was it that the Japanese government downgraded the credit rating. So let's look at the rationale. Okay, why is it? Because it warned that the country's performance would not be strong enough to justify a high grade. So credit rating somehow reflects a country's performance, or rather an expectation of a country's performance, right? Warned that the country would not be able. So this is some sort of an expectation. Okay, so because of this, they bump your credit rating down. If you go on and read the rest of the extract, you'll realize that this entire part is saying why the performance is facing problems and can't be solved. And it ties back down to the performance, or the expectation of the performance. So because you cannot overcome the problems that you are facing, I expect that you'll do badly, right? And then the final paragraph, final sentence, again they reiterate indication that the Japanese government debt burden could rise more significantly than we currently expect. So again, this is another expectation of the country's performance. In very simple, intuitive terms, your credit rating is just the confidence or expectations of a country's performance. That's it. It's the confidence or expectation of a country's performance. So if I expect that you are going to perform well, expectations high, credit rating high. If my expectations are low, credit rating low. That's pretty much about it. This credit rating is really used by investors. If I want to invest in a market, then I don't need to go and individually do my own research. How good is this country? How good is that country? Wow, then so many sectors, so many industries. What I do is I go to Standard & Poor, which is an external credit rating agency, and then they have already done all this homework for me. They have already evaluated the countries, and then they give a single rating. So they say, okay, the rating is A+ or AA-, etc., etc. Then I can buy into these countries with as much risk as I want to be exposed to. So if it's A+, highest confidence, highest expectation, least risk. But if I want to have expose myself to greater risks, I can buy into something with a lower credit rating. Usually why people do that is because the lower the credit rating, higher the risk, also higher the returns. But of course, depends whether you want to take such a big risk with your investments. Okay, so you don't need to know all the detail of how credit rating goes and how investment goes, but you should know what a credit rating is. And I think you can kind of infer that a credit rating is the confidence or expectation of a country's performance from the extract. And that's really the main purpose of this extract. So let's head back to answering the question. And now also let's take in mind the mark allocation. This question has 2 marks. So the first, right, is it 2 marks? Yes, correct. It's 2 marks. So the first mark will be to explain the factor. Why or how does the credit rating downgrade affect the demand or supply? The second mark will be the interaction and the effect of the changes in demand and or supply. Right? So, what is the credit rating going to do for demand and supply? With a lower credit rating, the Japanese economic performance is expected to be performing less or suboptimally, right? And this will reduce the demand for Japanese assets and therefore hence Japanese yen. Right? So why is it that the demand for Japanese assets will fall? It's because people are less willing to hold on to these Japanese assets. If I expect that the Japanese economy is not going to do so well, then maybe I don't want to invest in the economy as well. Maybe I don't want to hold on to Japanese currency because the returns to doing so is not going to be so high, so the demand may fall. Right? So this is really the first mark. Understanding how the issue that you're given, so the issue is credit rating downgrade, affects the demand and supply. So you need to tell me the demand or supply, and you need to tell me how it changes. So shift left or shift right, increase or decrease. And then once you know that, you can go on to explain how that will affect the yen. So at the initial exchange rates, there is a surplus of yen causing an downward pressure on yen, thus reducing the, sorry about that, value of yen. Okay, so this is a very quick price adjustment process at the initial exchange rate. Back in the graph, how you see that is here at your initial P naught here. If your demand has shifted left, then there is a surplus, and the surplus will cause a downward pressure on the exchange rate, which is why we see the value of the exchange rate, the value of yen, sorry, falling from P naught, and falls until the surplus is eliminated. You don't have to go through the detailed analysis of the price adjustment process, but you do at least have to mention that there is a surplus, and then this would lead to the reduction in the value of the yen. And this is the effect or the interaction, and this is your next mark. Together it forms 2 marks.